Okay, welcome back to Making It Look Easy, where we talk about traveling the world. And today I have a social media expert on. How you say your name again? I don't want to mess it up.
Alise Dawn.
Yeah, Elise Dunn out of Brooklyn. Are you from Brooklyn or you just living in Brooklyn?
Living in Brooklyn, but I'm from Atlanta.
You from Atlanta.
Yes,
How you
Atlanta.
like living in Brooklyn?
I love Brooklyn. It's just, a totally different lifestyle. I love a deli, bacon, egg, and cheese. Walking around, being like in the community, it's a lot different than walking in, or sorry, not walking, but driving in Atlanta because Atlanta is not a walkable city. But there's always stuff to do in New York. And it's just a really cool place for, young professional Black people. Atlanta is too, but I just wanted something different. So I love it.
What took you out there in the first place?
Work. Yeah.
Yo, I used to. So my first time going to New York, like, so as far as like traveling, period, like ever getting on the plane, it was to New York and it was to Brooklyn. My
Mm.
cousin went to school at LIU. That's the one over there off Fluting over there by Juniors. You know what I'm
Okay.
talking about?
I don't, but it sounds good.
You know where Juniors is though, right? In Brooklyn.
What's the area? What neighborhood in
They just call it like deep downtown. It's downtown Brooklyn. Right
Downtown?
there
Okay.
by Junior's, like the cheesecake spot in Brooklyn is called Junior's.
I haven't been there.
Anyway, that was my first time ever like getting on the plane traveling to go
Really?
anywhere to New York,
Yeah.
and
That's
I
a good one. Yeah, that's big
do
for
you
a first.
do you be feeling like motivated when you in the city, like waking up in New York every day? I mean, like that's a travel destination for everybody.
Yeah, I think so. It's also because I'm in Brooklyn, so it's a little bit different than being in Manhattan, which is like the hustle and bustle, where a lot of the tourists are. I feel like I live in a neighborhood, like really living in New York. So I really need to go to the city more often to actually feel like this is like New York. That's how I feel when I go to the city, when I'm in like Soho, even when I go up to Midtown, especially in Midtown, because that's where all the tourists are. And then of course like the Times Square, like all that kind of stuff that people, that you dream about all the time. But then like when you live there, I don't ever go to that area because, it's for tourists. But yeah, when I go to the city, I'm like, wow, this is literally the New York that I've always dreamed of, and I live in it. So I've been trying to get myself out of the house more because honestly, I travel so much that I'm really not even in New York a lot of the time. So yeah, but it is like a dream come true. I'm trying to get out and like do more like New York things, even if they are touristy, like really hit those bucket list things. But yeah, it's an experience for sure. I'm glad that I moved here. I've been here for a year and a half now, a little less than a year and a half.
Yeah. Do you go to the other boroughs like Queens and Bronx and
Yeah,
Harlem and all that?
I mainly go to the Bronx, because I have family in the Bronx, and then really to Queens for the airports. But I do need to branch out. I don't think I've been to Long Island yet. I haven't been to Long Island. And I don't really go into Queens much. But mainly I go into Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. But I gotta branch out somewhere to the other boroughs.
I've been to New York a lot of times. My ex, she from the Bronx, so I used to go out there like every month. Every month. Like I've been to New York probably like 15, 16 times and I still haven't gotten over it. Like I love going to New York. Like it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite places. There in Miami. And speaking of Miami, this is how I found you in the first place. You took a solo trip to
Mm,
Miami.
my first solo trip.
I know that's not your only trip, but that's your first solo trip.
First solo
I
trip.
did a solo trip to Miami back in like, I think it was like 2020, 2019. One of them years I took a solo trip out there and it was probably one of my best solo trips because it was domestic.
hmm
So what made you want to do that?
Honestly, I just got to the point where I wanted to celebrate my birthday exactly. how I wanted to. And, I love travel. I've never done a solo trip. So I was like, you know what? This might be the time that I do my first one, especially like you said, doing a domestic trip because it's somewhere that I've been before. I'm familiar with Miami, love Miami. So I felt like it was important for me to go somewhere where I was familiar with it first to doing a solo trip, just because there's a lot of factors involved with the solo trip, with safety, being a Black woman, all of these things. So I'm like, let me not push it too hard and go out of the country for my first one or go somewhere that I have no idea anything about. I at least understand Miami. I've been there. I know how to get around, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, let's do it. And it was, just a flight away, whether in New York or Atlanta. I actually went to Atlanta first and then I went from Atlanta to Miami. So quick little flight, wasn't nothing. And, I also wanted some place that I could just like lay on the beach and I don't have to worry about really doing too much exploring or figuring things out. Like in Miami, yes, you can club, you can do all those things, but you also can just lay out on the beach and eat all day, which is what I did. And it was just such an amazing experience. I haven't been on another solo trip yet, but I'm itching to go on another one. So I might even do it again this for my next birthday. So we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted, a birthday where I controlled everything. I don't have to worry about dealing with other people, what they want to do, and all this kind of stuff. Because I'm very much about like pro self, like pro me. And I even made a video about it before the solo trip about like doing what you want for your birthday and not like planning your birthday for other people. That also went pretty viral before the solo trip one. And I think that really resonated with people because a lot of times we just consider everyone else on our birthday. And a lot of times we don't end up enjoying our birthday because of that reason. So now I'm like, pro self, do exactly what you want to do. Solo trip is what I wanted to do. And I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah.
Hell yeah, shit. One of the things that like stuck out to me on that video was you had got the extra door lock.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's my type of person right here. Somebody that's think, especially like a woman.
Hmm.
So on this channel, we try to give as much solo traveling advice for females because I've traveled to like a bunch of places by myself. But when I talk to women and I'm like, you should do it too. They'd be like, I'm a female and I just can't really do that. And I disagree with that. So
Hmm.
I made it, you know, a thing to bring females on and tell their experience so that way they can help other females book that flight and travel along because I feel you like being that independent traveler and not having to really worry about too many people. Like, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Did you feel safe?
I did. There were times when I got a little paranoid, not gonna lie. But that, I mean, I feel like that happens to me anytime I'm by myself, just because literally, even in New York, even living there, anything can happen. So my head is on swivel all the time. And especially being I feel like it was the thought of actually being on a solo trip that made it be like, okay, we're on a solo trip. There's nobody else here with us. We're a little bit heightened, right? And I want to, every time I talk about the solo trip, I definitely make sure to tell people the full story of it, that it's not just like, oh, I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to go and I'm going to have the best time of my life, which yes, that's part of it. But there's also the fact that like I said, you are probably going to be a little bit heightened, a little bit more anxious about it, which is natural. You're by yourself. You've never done it before. And, that's just a natural part of it. But it's just really about being safe and giving yourself the peace of mind through the different like tactics that you do. And so like you mentioned like the lock that I have, which I bring on any trip, whether it's solo or not. And it's basically like a portable door lock that you put in the door, and it gives it like extra reinforcement for the door, so people like can't knock your door down. There's that. There's also just like regular like travel safety tips that everyone should be doing. Like when you're taking Ubers, you don't tell them your name, you ask what name they have and verify that way. Always verify their license plates. Always have like a story to tell people, so because people, if they want to, they'll find you. Okay, not to get people scared, but there are people who unfortunately prey on women that are by themselves. And if you aren't really clear with, what you're telling people, you could accidentally lead them to knowing a little bit more about you than you want them to know. So always have like an alias, tell them a different name. Don't tell them everything about you, where you're from or anything like that, or how long you're staying. Just be a little bit more cautious when you're talking to strangers, just because people can do anything. But I always just try to give the full picture. And once you have these, and all of these are like general travel tips, not just solo tips. So once you understand this for any travel context, you will feel a lot better about doing a solo trip, and hopefully some of those anxieties won't be so apparent. And also another thing I like to tell people is sometimes solo trips aren't for everyone. Everyone talks about them and they're amazing for certain people, but some people just truly don't want to do that, and it's fine. And I try to tell people you don't have to force yourself to do a solo trip if you don't want to. Only if you have a true desire to do a solo trip is when you need to look into it, do some research, do your thing, but don't feel pressured to do it just because a lot of people are doing it right now. It's just different strokes for different folks.
Where'd you learn this from? Like all these
This
little tips and stuff.
I mean, just through like experience, when you travel enough, you start to pick up on certain things. And then also just like also how you're brought up. Like I was brought up to not tell everybody my business, to always be cautious about things, like protect yourself, all of these different things. So I just kind of culminated a lot of these tips from like, and then also other travelers, TikTok, a lot of tips on TikTok. It just kind of comes with experience, but I try to share all the things that I learn with other people. So there's some things that people don't really think about, and sometimes I don't think about them either. And so it's just good to share this knowledge with people who are interested in traveling, so we can create like a safe travel community. Because travel is amazing, but we also want to make sure everyone is safe while doing it. So I just share my little tidbits when I can.
How long did it take you to plan that trip to Miami?
Not long at all. I think I booked it like maybe like less than a month before I went. I mean, there wasn't really anything to plan because I went to Miami. I didn't need to plan anything. The only thing I booked ahead of time, besides like the hotel and the flight, was my reservations at Nikki Beach, which is like their little private beach club that they have. I just booked that, and then that was it. Everything else was just on the fly, figuring out where I wanted to eat, asking friends who lived in Miami, or yeah, friends who lived in Miami or who were more familiar with Miami, what places I should go to like for dinner. But yeah, there wasn't really any planning involved because it was a domestic trip and I've been there before, so it wasn't a heavy lift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel you. It makes life a lot easier when you could just book the flight, book the room, and then just pull up and like kind of let go of everything.
Yeah.
But you say you felt paranoid at times. In what moments did you feel like you was paranoid? Was it when you was like out and about or
More so, honestly, it was more so in the hotel, actually. And not that the hotel was sketchy by any means, but I think that's the place where it gets
more
people
vulnerable?
can tell that you're by yourself. You know what I mean? If you're
Yeah.
not careful, right? So really when I was out and about, it was fine for the most part because there's other people in public and like, things like that. So it wasn't a huge deal. But when I was in the hotel, little things of like, leaving your hotel room and you're walking down the hallway and you see somebody down there, whatever, you're by yourself, maybe it's a man, like whatever, just little things like that. But there was this one specific moment, and it was when I got on the elevator. I think I had just put my stuff down, whatever, got acclimated, and I was going downstairs to like get food or something. And I was on the elevator by myself, the doors closed, all of a sudden the elevator like does a little stop. And I was like, Lord have mercy. Please don't have me stuck in this elevator by myself. I thought I was gonna be stuck. Okay. And that was really, it wasn't even about anybody else. It was just the fact that I was stuck in the elevator. And I was like, of all times to do this is when I'm on a solo trip by myself. This will never happen to me. But then it was fine. I just realized I needed to press something else. Like it was fine. But my heart dropped. I was like, please, I am by myself. I don't
I
have time.
already know it. Yo, I hate elevators. If it's anything more than 4 floors, I'll take an elevator. Other than that, I'm taking the stairs.
Right, right. So it was getting rough. But it was just like little moments like that, or like if I was out and then I would notice someone feeling a little weird, and I'd be like, okay, so then I need to like walk faster or figure out what I'm about to do. Just little things like that. But it's all very normal. I want to keep saying that this is normal so I don't like, dissuade anyone from doing a solo trip. But it's just the realities of being alone and being, a woman, black woman at that. So, you know.
Yeah. I know you travel to other places. We emphasizing on Miami because you took that solo, and I think that there's a lot of great things to pull from that solo trip because it is a lot of things. So, but do you drink? Do you have a good time when you was on that trip?
Yeah, definitely in moderation. I had a few drinks, but definitely not past a certain threshold because I want to make sure that I was still coherent enough to do what I needed to do. And I always advise women to maybe not drink as much when you're on a solo trip, at least not in public. If you're going to, keep it in your hotel, whatever you got to do. But I would just not recommend being not sober out and about by yourself. So I definitely had a couple drinks, but it wasn't anything, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I figured that was how you was moving, but I had to ask because we got listeners and some of them
Yeah.
they don't quite understand. You know what I'm saying? So
And,
appreciate you
yeah,
for that.
it's different for different folks, right? So it's like I don't think I could ever recommend drinking a lot, but like if you want to, just be safe about it. Have a plan in place. Tell a friend beforehand. Give them your location. Tell them everything that you're gonna do that night. Whatever. Like just try to be proactive about it. If you want to have fun, totally get it, but just be safe. You know.
How were you on group trip?
Group trips. As I travel, I learn what I like and what I don't like. And and I'm finding that group trips, they have to be very well planned, very well curated. I'm getting to
Facts.
the age where it's not giving like a college like spring break where we're like, "Oh, let's all go somewhere," and then we find the cheapest hotel, the first flight that comes out and we just throw the money at it and go. That's not what it gives for me anymore. And I don't think it ever really was, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
And when the group is too large, if it's not the right type of people on the trip, meaning like I'm a planner. So if I'm the one who's thinking of all the logistics and everyone's just like, yeah, I want to take some pics by the waterfall. And that's all they got. That's all they have to, contribute. It's not going to work for me. So I need a healthy mix of people who know what they're doing, who have something to bring to the table. Maybe we have someone who's like the restaurant girl. She's in charge of finding the cute restaurants, doing the research. We have someone who loves the excursions. She can book the excursions. Like everyone needs to have a role in the group. So I'm down with the group trips, but they need to be intentional and they need to be planned. And I know some people there's a whole conversation about like go with the flow versus itinerary trips. I'm a healthy mix of both. I feel like any good itinerary has a mix of both. However, there are certain things that can never be go with the flow. Okay. And that's the thing that I like to stress to people. And really group trips is all about finding the people that you work well with. And I found individuals who I feel like I can travel with without a hitch. And typically for me, that looks like doubles. So, or like me and one other person, and less of like me and a group. You know what I mean? Unless it's a group trip that I'm not planning, I don't have like a ton of stake in. It's like I don't know, like a bachelorette trip or something, or there's another reason to it and I'm not the one planning it, then I'm like, cool, fine. I can breeze, I can coast. But if I'm in charge of planning it, no, we're gonna have a little bit of structure, just a little, just a little.
Where did you take your first trip to?
First trip ever, like as a youngin, couldn't tell you. I've been traveling since I was probably
I'm
like,
talking about like as a like because you've been to 6 countries, all right? From what I remember, Mexico, Turks, Spain, England,
mm-hmm,
Bahamas,
in France.
and France.
Of that list, I want to say the first one. Now, I didn't start international travel until probably the last 3 years, which is where all of those, for the most part, all of those countries came in. I want to say the first one was Cancun. I think, I don't know. I've also been on cruises before, several of those. So if you count that in like Bahamas, but I'm just going to say first like real planned trip was a couple years ago to Cancun for my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was a group trip.
No, that was my boyfriend and I went on that for my birthday. So it was just like a duo thing. And we stayed at an all inclusive, did my little
Which one?
research. What's it called?
'Cause I've been to like a few of them out there.
Mm, it was called Hideaway, a part of the Royalton Riviera or whatever. It was like adults only. It was actually a really large compound where they had the kids side was elsewhere, but we were in the adults section, and then there was a middle part where the adults and kids could come together. So it was basically like three resorts in one, and the adults had access to all three of them, but the kids only had access to the kids side in the middle one. So, you know. But that was amazing, and they had like 13 restaurants and like seven pools. They had like pool parties. It was actually my birthday's in February, so it was around Super Bowl time when Rihanna performed, and they had the halftime show with her playing in front of the she wasn't there, but like obviously um on the screen in front of the pool and like the whole thing. So that was amazing. 10 out of 10. Love it, all inclusive. And yeah, I think that was like the first, like the start of my big travels in the past couple years.
How did you feel on that first abroad trip, like overseas trip? Like how was that? Because I know
Um,
for me, my first trip abroad, 2 days prior to takeoff, like I was so excited I couldn't even sleep.
yeah, I feel like it was different. If I want to count like my first, honestly, so because we were on a all inclusive, it felt like, there was containment, right? You were contained on a resort. We weren't going anywhere else. Everything was there for you. You didn't really have to think about anything. So that to me was like it was easy peasy. I was just excited because that was my birthday trip. But now my first time going abroad and like not being on a all inclusive and like you really had to figure everything out was in Turks and Caicos. That was a time. I will say it was a time. There were so many things that I learned on that trip. Just so many things. We'll probably get into it. But in general, I was excited. I don't ever really I am nervous depending on the type of place. I think whenever I go to a new place, like when I went to Europe for the first time, then I'm a little bit more nervous because I'm like, okay, I literally have no frame of reference. Like, what is this? What am I getting into? But then when I go to the Caribbean, things like that, it's like, okay, I kind of know what to expect for the most part because I've been there several times in different places. So it kind of just depends on the trip, what's the vibes, how I'm feeling beforehand.
So what did you learn on that trip in Turks? We want to know. Was it crazy?
Turks and Caicos was, I always say I left a piece of my heart in Turks and Caicos. That was just such an amazing trip. That was probably my first like big girl trip. Like me and a friend booked that like from scratch. Like we booked everything from the hotel to the transfer or no, did we do the transfers? Hotel transfers? I don't think so. But like real research, all those things, like booking excursions. Like I had like a spreadsheet of what excursions we are gonna do on what day, like how much each thing was, all this stuff. So that was like the first like real planned trip that I've taken. And I just learned so many things just about myself and travel, but then also when I spoke about like people knowing who you can travel with and who you can't. That was a learning experience for me because who I traveled with, I we are travel partners down now. Like
Yeah.
of course we had like our hiccups or whatever, but it was good for me to like go through the process.
Yeah.
Just have a plan for like, okay, this is what happens when you're on a trip with someone else. And this is what you need to take an account for. Just little things about like, rooms, like arrangements of like how messy you are, how clean you are, little things like that. Or just like how I mentioned, like in the schedule of the day, are you with someone who wants built-in time to rest? Are you with someone who's like, go, go, go? What are the vibes? Those kind of things. And then just like the country of Turks in general. It's just such a culture shock. It was just so funny. Yeah, like we were taking boats, we were riding horses, like just opening my mind to so many different experiences that I had never done before. And I truly feel like that like cemented. I always loved to travel, but I was like, no, like I need to like do this all the time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so just like so many things wrapped into one trip, learning about myself, other people, the travel experience, about different cultures, things like that. So it was a 10 out of 10 experience.
Yo, you hitting everything right on the head as far as talking about traveling with the right people. Friendships end
They do
behind
and have
trips.
before. Yes.
Friendships end, or it can definitely create some distance. You know what I'm saying? You learn a lot about somebody when you take that flight and you with them for a few days and you seeing how they moving, especially after you spent all this time planning. and
Mhm.
then you get out there and then they want to bullshit. I'm not talking about like, your experience, but
Yeah, no,
I've
I get
seen
it.
it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like having a roommate in college, like that one person. I mean, y'all was cool as fuck, and then y'all become roommates, and then like,
Yeah.
y'all don't really talk no more. So like, you right. That planning with somebody is very important. How do you feel like traveling has impacted your life?
I feel like travel has given me a outlook on what is there to look forward to in life, right? It gives me something somewhat, you can call it an escape somewhat, but not in a way that's like avoidant of everyday life, but more so, just a reminder of like the big picture of life, of like all of the cultures and the places and the people and all of the things there is that are in this world, because I feel like we get really stuck in our own little bubble of, doing our going to work, having our, friends, relationships, whatever, in our own proximity, our local communities, which is great. But there's a whole other side of several sides of the world that we are not privy to on a day-to-day basis unless you actively seek them. And so for me, it keeps me grounded because I remember that everyone doesn't live the way that I'm living currently in a lot of different ways. They're less fortunate, or they're experiencing things I could never imagine in such a grandeur type of way. Um, so it's just, it really opens up your mind about a lot of things, and you learn a lot about other cultures, and you just become more of a well-rounded individual, I believe. And you can bring a lot of those experiences and learnings to like your everyday life. And it's a privilege also. Traveling is an absolute privilege. And I say this all the time in my content because I feel I see a lot of people, saying, well, I would love to travel more, but I don't, I can't afford it, or all of these things. And travel is like the biggest privilege, I believe, but it also doesn't have to be super expensive, to experience these other cultures, other places. There's also ways to make it affordable. So I think travel is just an amazing outlet. It's an amazing source of knowledge, information, experiences. And it's just, I do believe that people should travel more if they can. And if they have the capacity. And if not, then, just try to have more experiences outside of their norm on a day-to-day basis, even that if that's not taking a flight somewhere, but exploring your local community more, or just trying to find experiences that can really make your life feel more fulfilled. So, yeah.
You somebody is looking at your content or just looking at your page, they would think that you've been all over the world, the way you put your content together. I mean, I think when you living in a place like New York and you have traveled, it like makes up for a lot. Because when being in New York, you know, just, going into different boroughs and the different neighborhoods, it almost seems like it's in a different world. Everything you said, I definitely relate to, how it, for one, it's a privilege. You got people that like then been in prison, and they can't even like really get a passport. Like to leave a country, like you got to have a passport. And then you got people that just don't want to get a passport. To me, I feel like not having a passport is like the biggest disadvantage you could put yourself in, because you can't leave. Like you're stuck, like I can't imagine being like that. I'm about to actually come up on my second passport.
Nice.
My second.
Yeah.
So this year, matter of fact, my first trip I ever took overseas was to Italy.
It's a good one.
What? It was like that was the trip that like motivated me to want to go after things bigger than what I thought I could go after. Like after the second time I went, because I went twice, because my ex, she's from Italy. So I've been to Rome twice. I've been to the Vatican. I've been to Venice. I've been all up and down Italy.
Love
After
that.
that, after that relationship, I joined the military, got out, and I've been traveling ever since.
Hmm.
So like when it comes to traveling, like I got so many stories. What's the craziest travel story you got? What's my craziest the craziest travel story that you want the world to hear?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if my stories are crazy per se. There's definitely some interesting ones, but like I've never like done anything super crazy on during travel because like I don't know, that's scary. I mean, probably just like I feel like Turks was just not a real place. And not in the sense of like Turks is not like, you know, an accredited country, but just the experience that we had in Turks was just like, what's happening, right? Like we saw Summer Walker and Little Meech. We were on like
Hmm.
in the room and now we're like what are we about to do? Like there's a lizard right over there. It's a big ass moth on the window. Like all of these things. I'm trying to think. Honestly, there were so many different like random things that happened in Turks. But I think it was just really unserious. Like it was a very unserious trip that we had. It was one thing after another. And at the end of it, we were delirious. We were like, we don't know what's going on anymore. None of this is real.
How long was y'all there for?
And we were there for I want to say like 5 days.
That's a good enough time. That's a long time to be honest with you. 5 days.
Yeah. I mean, it was, but like we did so much. And like even my horse, like when I was on the horse, we were riding horses like in the water, like in the beach water. My horse was about to sit. I'm on the back of the horse and I didn't know what my horse was doing. I don't know anything about horses. But the instructor person was like starting to tap the horse and I'm like, what's going on? And they were like, oh, she was about to sit down and like you would have been underwater. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, like let's make sure she doesn't do that. Like she was about to drown me, the horse. Just like crazy things like that. But we were there for 5 days, but we had like, a lot of things planned, like parasailing, dropped us in the water, like so many things. So
Can you swim?
I can maybe stay alive. Yeah, that's all I can
You can
say.
tread the water.
A little bit. I mean, honestly, not as well as I should for me to be doing everything that I do when I travel. But for the most part, I'm just like YOLO, as long as I have a life jacket, we can figure it out.
Ain't nothing wrong with having a life jacket. Shit.
No,
But I do think that I ain't even gonna say knowing how to swim, but having that confidence to actually get in the water can
hmm
make traveling a lot different.
for sure.
I didn't get over that fear until I went to Virgin Islands. I went to the Virgin Islands and I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I had too many drinks, I don't know. And I was like, I'm gonna do the scuba diving excursion. It cost me $90. And the instructor was like, you ain't gotta know how to swim to do scuba diving. And I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, you ain't gotta hate swimming. I was like, bet. So I did it. Have you ever did scuba diving?
No, parasailed, kayaked, all of those things, but never like submerged.
Scuba diving, he wasn't lying, puts he like that when he said you didn't have to know how to swim. Like when you scuba diving, you almost like a little astronaut in the
hmm
water. Anything is hard to stay down because
Okay. I
but
thought you'd be like way down by because you got like the tank and like, don't you got like equipment on you? Yeah.
yeah, but nah, you not is actually you know when you get in the water, you actually want to go down, but you're you're being afloat because you got that oxygen, you got that air,
hmm
but you can actually breathe because of that thing. So with that thing in your mouth, you're able to breathe,
Yeah.
and then
One
you're
day.
just able.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope so. Shit, I didn't got to see a lot of beautiful things on the water.
Yeah.
A lot, you
You know,
know.
I don't know if I can go deep sea. Like I can do like a little coral reef, like cute, but like too deep, nah, I'm sorry. Only because it gets scary. The farther out you go, scarier it gets
What
for
about?
me. You said what about snorkeling?
Yeah,
No, I haven't. But that's better because you're like right on the surface, right? With like the little circle. I haven't, but I'm down.
yeah. Once you put that little mask on, you know, You think you're doing something because you're not gonna be you. It's not gonna drown you because you're
Mhm.
it's keeping you up because of that whatchamacallit. But yeah, once you get over that like that fear of like the water, the second time I got in the water, it was in like in deep ocean,
Mm, mm.
like super deep ocean. But it was like 100 people out there, so I felt a little bit better about it. But yeah, now I
They were
feel you.
all snorkeling and scuba diving with you? Okay.
But I'm talking about like way out. I'm talking about like 30 minutes out.
And you know that yeah, I'll be on the boat, I think. I think I'll stay on the boat. I'm not gonna lie. But what's crazy is I parasailed that far out, and that was great.
Now see, that still thing scares me.
Yeah.
That that shit scares me because like like can you take that shit off yourself, or do somebody have to take it off for you?
Somebody gotta take it off.
See, I don't like that.
But I mean, why would you want to take it off? You mean like while you up in the air?
Like, what if you like? Don't you ever hit the water? Don't you? Like, what if it was a situation where you ended up having to go in the water?
Well, it just depends on your company that does it, but my company that did the parasailing, like you're up in the air, whatever, a couple minutes, and then they reel you back in, and then you get close enough, and they'll dip you in the water for funsies, and then reel you back in, and that's it. Like you don't touch the water unless you want to, or unless it's like a different type of excursion where you're like getting in the water. But for the most part, you're up in the air for the whole time.
Hmm.
Bring you back in. So yeah.
It's a risk either way. But I feel you though. I mean, I've seen a lot of people do it. Don't get me wrong. Like whoever's watching, like if you want to do it, do it. To each his own. I say. What is your dream trip?
Dream.
Solo. Solo.
That's a great question. I have a lot of places that I want to go, but I feel like I want to experience them with someone though. So let me think of like dream solo trip. I don't know. I feel like the solo trips that I want to do are all like laid back, like beach related. I mean, maybe like a Costa Rica or like I don't know, like something just because I feel like there's a difference between like vacation and travel. I feel like the solo trips that I want to do are like vacation focused, not like I'm exploring these things da 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 by myself because I do feel like after a certain point, like I really want to go to Thailand, like things like that, but I want to experience that with someone. Whereas like if I'm just going on a vacation, yeah, I'll sit on a beach by myself anytime. So, like a Bora Bora, Costa Rica, Aruba, I'll do those solo trip. Because I feel like it's just kind of like we're just relaxing for the most part. So I would say like something like that, like beach focus was a dream solo trip.
Let me tell you something about Thailand. I went there summer before last, and I was out there for like 3 months. And I stayed in Pattaya for majority of my trip. Everybody pretty much knows about Phuket
Hmm.
and EP places like that. And when I was in Pattaya, it was so chill. Like that trip to Miami you took. Like imagine going to the beach and paying for like one of them like layout. What's the things on the beach? The chairs, the cabanas, but the ones that like lay out with a big, huge umbrella and a
Hmm.
table, the whole shebang for only how much was it? 100 baht. That's only $3
That's crazy. Yeah.
for the whole day, and then you have people that come up to you, like you might have like a masseuse that might come up to you, and she'll give you like a leg and foot massage for 1 hour, $10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got people coming and bringing you drinks and food. The most you're gonna spend sitting there all day is maybe like $20, and you getting all this service.
Yeah.
I did that damn.
And see, that's the thing. It's like it costs to get there, but once you're there, a lot of places very cheap, very affordable.
Well, so from New York, I can see it cost her. But they got this airline that I just got put on by a friend called Air Zip. Them flights are like stupid cheap. Like to fly out of LA, you can get the Bangkok for $300 one way.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a Japanese airline, and it
Okay.
leaves out of San Francisco, LA, Houston, and we talking like just to get over there, like to get to Japan, like 200, $300. But it also goes to like places like Bangkok. But Thailand, that's one of I'm actually going back this summer
Oh, okay.
because I really enjoyed myself. Shit, yeah, I was living too damn good, and I see why people go over there and they don't be wanting to come back,
Yeah.
especially like as a digital nomad.
Do you feel like is it better as a solo trip or better as a group trip to Thailand?
Solo trip.
Solo?
Solo trip. Yeah, when you said you want to experience it with somebody, from what you see on the internet, like yeah, like going to like PP, like
Hmm.
it got like the rock formations with the greenery on it and all the blue water and stuff like that. But like that type of trip, like yeah, like if you going to Phuket, you want to go hang out and do all that, yeah. But if you want to go on a solo trip and not have to spend that much money and fully relax,
Hmm.
yeah, Thailand is. You got people. I mean, so a lot of my homies and female friends too. They like Bali.
Hmm.
I haven't done that yet, but Bali is a little bit more expensive from what I've been told. A little bit more,
Yeah.
but it's still very affordable. You know,
Definitely on my list for sure. Bali. I honestly want to go anywhere. I'll go anywhere. It just depends on whether I go solo or with people, honestly.
can you travel now since you work from home, or like how does it work?
I mean, I can and I do. That's why I've been traveling so much. It just gets a little, well, the thing is if I travel, I don't want to be working. So like I would still need to put PTO in, because I'm not about to be like on my computer in Thailand. You know what I mean? But I've done a lot of like my domestic trips, which I probably shouldn't say this. I've done a lot of domestic trips, while I work remote. But yeah.
Shit, what's wrong with that? I mean, a lot of people, a lot of people do that. I was doing that working for the
Well,
government. I was.
right. It just depends on your establishment, and that's all I will
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know
Yeah.
how it go. I was
Yeah.
working for the government, and my ass was on the
And you know what?
what?
I said, period. You gotta do what you gotta do. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. Real talk. Hey, how did you like Austin?
Austin was interesting. My first time in Texas in general. So never been to Houston, never been to Dallas, like nowhere but Austin. And I kind of knew the vibes of Austin beforehand because my friend who lives there told me, the vibes.
Hmm.
So I didn't necessarily have like an expectation of Austin. But if I did, I feel like that would have been like what I saw was exactly what I would have expected, like not super diverse. It kind of feels like a college town, like a small, like a big college town, if that makes sense. I don't know. But there were influences I could tell of like, or that reminded me of different cities of like, the river going through the city, like Chicago, and then like downtown felt a little bit like downtown LA at night, where it kind of gets a little Gotham City like with the homeless people, things like that.
Hmm.
And then you got like the barbecue, like whatever Southern thing, even though Texas, that's a whole another thing. Texas in the South, I don't know. It's very interesting, I will say. I definitely want to go to Houston, try Houston out for size. But Austin was cute. Like, you know, have no major thoughts about her. Like she's all right.
Hey, I'm 1,000% on board with you. I,
Yeah.
I went to school at Texas State, so I've been in this area. I've been very familiar with this area for like the past 10 years. But I'm from the Houston area, so Houston is really like my stomping grounds. But I also would consider Dallas my stomping grounds because I'm in Dallas all the time. But you ain't lying though about Austin. And you was only out here for like what, a few hours?
No, it was a couple of days. Yeah, it was like two days, but yeah.
And you was right. Everything you said is not diverse. Austin is where I learned what a liberal actually was. I didn't know what that word meant.
Mm.
And then Austin really showed me like what it is to be a liberal. And I was like, I don't really like this shit. They crazy as hell out here, yo. Crazy. So if you ever think about traveling to Austin, you know, I'm not gonna say you're not gonna have a good time. Like, I'll be lying if I said that. But depends on the person. You know what I'm saying? Like when you travel, what do you look to do? Like what do you look to get into?
It just depends, but definitely food all the time. Trying food like experiences, whether it's for the experience itself or the actual food, cuisine, whatever. I love an activity, and the activity can range from being like an active activity or, like an experience of sorts. I'm trying to give an example of like what that even means. But like, because like the thing is like if I'm going to a city, the excursions that I'm looking for, or the activities I'm looking for are going to be much different than going to, an island. Like I'm not going to jet ski in Austin. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I'm sure you could, but like I don't want to. So it just kind of depends. I kind of read.
Can you can.
Yeah, and I see people like jet skiing in the Hudson River in New York, and I'm like, that's radioactive. So like it's little things like that. Like yes, you can, but I don't want to do that. So it just depends. And like in the cities, I don't even want to say museums because like I've come to the realization that I really don't even like care for museums truly unless they're like an interactive museum or like an installation of sorts. But like give me one museum and that's fine. Like we can go to one like that's not, about the culture of the place and like, whatever. Like that's cute. I'm not trying to be in museums all day because they get very boring, in my opinion. But just like little things, like when in Austin, we did like the lip lab experience where we made our own lipsticks and lip glosses or whatever. And like something like that you can do in any city, but still, it was a cute activity to do. Like you're traveling and like, whatever. So it just kind of depends. I just kind of read the room, see what the vibes are. And if like a place is like known for something, then I definitely want to do that. But other than that, I just kind of like do research, see what is popping in that city, and then be like, okay, I want to do that. So yeah, just it varies.
Great minds think alike, yo. A lot of things you've been saying, we pretty much on the same page about damn near everything. I'm just glad that you seeing it. Because if I'm seeing it, they don't want to put you where you said it for someone else. They like, okay, I get it now. Because I be having debates with people all the time about traveling. I'm like, bro, you missing out on so much. You know what I'm saying? You arguing with me and I'm telling you to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
What? Hmm. I want to ask this a certain way. What advice do you have for women that want to solo travel?
I have lots of advice, and I'm going to try to simplify it. The first thing I'm going to say has nothing to do with the actual traveling. It's more about self-reflection. Ask yourself, what is it that you want to get from the solo trip? Or why is it that you want to go on a solo trip? Is it to get closer to yourself, get more in tune with yourself? Because I don't know if you've experienced this, but me personally, when I was on my solo trip, it was very reflective. I was by myself the entire time. I didn't have outside external, what's the word? Like people to distract you, distractions, or like people to talk to, whatever. Like it's just you and the place, right? So are you going to solo, or do you want to go on a solo trip for that personal time, self reflection? Do you want to just really get in tune with like the culture that you're going to? Or do you just want to have like an experience like that only you can share? Like, what is it that you want to get out of solo tripping? Just so you can make sure you get that from it, you know? Because it's very easy for people, I feel, to go on a solo trip, be all excited about it, and then they sit in their hotel room the entire time and they don't.
Mhm.
They're scared of, and it's understandable why, but they're scared of going outside by themselves, being seen and perceived by themselves, think things like that. So, like, really trying to understand what is it that you're going on the solo trip for? What are your, I hate to make it sound like a project, but like what are your goals? Like what do you want to get out of it so you can make the plan ahead of time and make sure that you're feeling fulfilled with the trip. beforehand, before you even like book anything, before you think about where you want to go. Really sit down with yourself and understand what it is you want to get out of the trip. That's big advice before the trip. And then the main thing about it is really just to be aware. Be aware, be safe at all costs. Like, as much as you want to have these fun experiences, just know that, your life is very important. And just to, you know, just not take anything for granted. Be super careful. Anything can happen at any time. Unfortunately, if you do um kind of let yourself not be on guard as much, something could happen, you never know. But just do all of your research ahead of time, be prepared, know some of those like safety tips that I talked about before. Just be prepared, and if you feel very prepared in, your trip and things like that, you'll have a lot more fun because you're able to enjoy it but also stay safe at the same time. So, those are the biggest things.
That's the same advice men can take too, because that's the same advice that I use for myself. We can get paranoid and have anxiety too. I get anxiety, like large crowds, like I can't do it.
Mhm.
Like I don't do large crowds. But everything that you said is like spot on, spot on. Before I let you go, shit, where you went to school at?
I went to school at University of Georgia, go Dogs. Whatever time, national champions. I don't know. I should know this.
You the person I've had on here from that school.
Really? You said the second person or
The
third?
second. The
Second.
second.
Thank you. Go Dogs. And that's in Athens, Georgia. If anybody's familiar. Um,
What did you
I studied advertising. So I got a degree in advertising, and some certificates and like writing and like new media, like coding, like front end development type of stuff. But advertising. And that's what I work in now.
Yeah, shit. I went to Texas State. You ever heard of Texas State University?
Is that an HBCU or no?
I wish. I
Okay.
wish, but
No.
nah, it's not. Nah, it's not. It was at one point the number one party school in the country.
Mm,
Once a I was
okay.
there back in like 2013. 2013,
Yeah, I'm not
2014. I
familiar.
had say what?
I said I'm not familiar, but it sounds like a vibe.
What? It was a vibe. A super like I could talk about that all day. Matter of fact, we might even have an episode talking about those years. They was actually about to make a movie at that school because it was so crazy.
Okay, what a movie. Gonna get
We
people
we
caught up.
we partied. Tuesdays was like one of the biggest days. Like I'm talking about like at the club, like party Tuesdays, Wednesdays was country night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday fun day. So the only day we really had off was Monday.
That's crazy. But shout out.
Yeah, nah, it was insane. How can we support you though? How can this channel support you? What
Um,
can we find? What
I
link can
mean,
we click on?
yeah, I mean, it's not a ton. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This podcast is amazing. I think just talking about travel and making it, something that everyone has access to and just the tips and all that stuff is really important. So thank you for doing the work and having this platform yourself. As for unfortunately don't have a cute podcast, but I do make social content or content on social media, mainly TikTok. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I know it's a little. It
Okay.
was a little. I still got you though.
Okay, cool. I make content on social media, mainly on TikTok at Alise Dawn. That's ALISEDAWN, as well as just post pictures on Instagram. I don't even really do content really on Instagram. It's just more so life things, um, you know, recaps, travel recaps, things like that. But I haven't gotten into my content bag just yet there. But that's really it for now. When I do start to do cool things, I will let you know. But yeah, that's all I got. But again, thank you for this platform and all the things. And I'm really happy to be part of it. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah, no, the glory is to you. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your travel experience. And they talking about letting TikTok go here soon. Like, how you feel about that?
And the thing is, we've seen platforms come and go before, so this is not going to be the first time, nor will it be the last. I think we're good with TikTok for a little bit more time, I will say. I don't think it's going to be a complete pivot. There's a lot of money in TikTok right now. I know because I am seeing the actual influencer contracts and how much they're steadily making on this platform with the brand deals. We're going to be fine. And when there is the new up and coming app, it's just important for the people who want to capitalize on it to do it ahead of time, because that's how the people on TikTok who are doing really well now, they were on TikTok way before the masses were. So just staying, flexible, you know, ready to change, pivot any moment. And also just optimizing your content. So if you're already filming a bunch of content, whether it's long form, short form, there's always ways to use it for other platforms and just reuse it in different ways. So just staying, adaptable is the main thing. But we'll be fine whether we have the clock app or not. Everything will be okay.
Yeah, sending some people in a frenzy. Honestly, I love YouTube. I mean, I feel like I use YouTube for everyday life because it's very informative. But for some reason, like YouTube is just, um, it just doesn't feel like regular social media, like having DMs and messages and all that stuff. You post your video and if it helps somebody, they'll let you know. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And if they like you, they'll find you, they'll follow you, they'll keep up with you. So that's what I like about it. But you know, now that you on the channel, people gonna be able to find you. So hmm.